Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be looking at the Week 5 Thursday night football game on DRAFTKINGS. We're going to talk about the showdown slate. This Thursday we got a really good game between the Rams and the Seahawks. We're going to look through some of my favorite plays for the showdown slate, talk about who I think you should be using at captain. I'll hit on some of the favorite studs that I'm trying to pay up for. If there's any cheap value plays I like, I'll be sure to touch on those as well. Just before we do get started, guys, I would definitely appreciate it if you would drop a like on this video and let me know down in the comments who are some of your favorite plays for this showdown slate. If you got any sleepers, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. Let me know who's your top captain, who's the guy that you're trying to play at captain. Also, if you did miss it, I made a recap video for Week 4 where I pretty much went through the Week 4 slate, recapped it, talked about my lineups, how I played my lineups, who I played, went through and talked about my picks that I gave out in my Week 4 video. Talked about how those did, the good ones and the bad ones. Didn't just cover the good picks. So if you want to check that recap video out, I would really appreciate it. I will be doing recap videos every week now on Monday, most likely. Either Sunday night or Monday, I'll make my recap videos. So would appreciate it if you would check those out. Also, if you are new to the channel, if you have not subscribed yet, make sure you click that subscribe button down below. Click the notification bell as well, so that way you'll get notified every time I upload and you'll never miss out on a new video. So we're just going to go ahead and start off with the guy that I like to pay up for at the top. It's Russell Wilson. He's my favorite quarterback. Definitely between the two quarterbacks, I do prefer Russell Wilson in this game. I believe he's the most expensive player on this showdown slate, kind of for good reason. I mean, Russell Wilson's just been just a great fantasy quarterback ever since he's been on the Seahawks. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. Only reason he doesn't have massive games all the time is because the Seahawks do tend to run the ball a lot more than they pass. I feel like this is a game, though, where there could definitely be some shootout potential, and we see the Seahawks have to throw the ball a bit more than they normally would. If Seattle does get ahead in this game, they will run the ball a lot, but I just don't see that being the case. Right now, this game does have a 50-point total, just a 2-point spread, so it's projected to be a high-scoring game. It's projected to be a close game as well. I think Russell's probably going to throw the ball 35, close to 40 times. Anytime Wilson's throwing the ball that much, he usually puts up pretty big games. Like we saw against the Saints, he had like a 44 DraftKings point game. He had to throw the ball a lot in that game. Even if Russell only throws the ball like 25 times, he's so efficient that he could go for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, even if he's only throwing the ball 25 times. So between Goff and Wilson, I do prefer to go to Russell Wilson. But I usually do play about 20 lineups on these showdown slates and the low dollar stuff. So I'll probably have some Jared Goff as well. But I expect to have more Russell Wilson than Jared Goff on this showdown slate. The next guy we're going to look at that I really like is Cooper Kupp. So Cooper Kupp, if you want to play him in your captain, he's $14,400. If you want to use Cooper Kupp as a flex play, he's $9,600. I do tend to play wide receivers and running backs in my captain rather than going to quarterbacks, because quarterbacks just don't give you the upside that wide receivers and running backs do. Like, rarely do you get 35, 40-point games from quarterbacks. I know Russell Wilson did it earlier this year, but usually you don't get those kind of games from quarterbacks, whereas receivers, you'll have receivers go for 35, 40 DraftKings points pretty much every week. So Cooper Kupp definitely makes for a viable captain play. He's been Jared Goff's go-to guy so far this season. 46 targets through 4 games. I know that's like towards the top of the league, up there with like Keenan Allen as most targets so far this year. Kupp's been targeted a ton. I think he's a much stronger play than Tyler Lockett. I believe Tyler Lockett's $200 cheaper. I would much rather just play Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's getting way more consistent volume. Tyler Lockett has had some double-digit target games this year. I think Week 2 and Week 3 he had like 12 and 14 targets, but I know Week 1 he only had like 4 targets. I think last week against the Cardinals, I did like him quite a bit in that game, and he only had like 2 targets, I believe, whereas Kupp's just getting 9, 10, 11 targets pretty much every game. So I do prefer Cooper Kupp over Tyler Lockett. If you are paying for Russell Wilson, then I guess it would make sense to play Tyler Lockett, but I think I'd rather just play Kupp if I can get the $200 and get to him. Just feel a lot more safer with Cooper Kupp. Both guys do have a ton of upside, though. But looking at the matchup against the Seattle secondary, nobody really scares me defensively from the Seattle secondary. I do expect the Rams receivers to have some success in this matchup. They should not have a problem getting open here. I think a couple of them could get loose. We could see Brandon Cook score a long touchdown. We could see guys like Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp put up 100-plus yards. I expect the Rams to have a lot of success in this game through the air. I do like a lot of the Rams receivers, and Cooper Kupp is definitely my favorite one if you can pay up for him. But the next guy we're going to talk about is Chris Carson. So Chris Carson, if you want to use him in your captain spot, he's 12,300. If you want to use him as a flex play, he's 8,200. I think overall, Chris Carson's probably my favorite captain play on the slate, especially when you factor in his price tag compared to guys like Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, Cooper Kupp. Like Kupp, I think is like 14.4 if you want to play him at captain. Russ is like almost 16,000. I'd rather just play Chris Carson, and that's going to allow me to pay up for more guys to upgrade at other spots. I really like going to Chris Carson as a captain play here. He's clearly the number one running back for the Seahawks right now. He's averaging just over 20 touches a game, and even with Rashad Penny expected to return for this game, Penny did get injured, I believe, he didn't play week 3, he didn't play week 4. Carson did get a pretty big workload in both of those games, but even in weeks 1 and 2 when Rashad Penny was active, Chris Carson was still getting a ton of touches. I believe week 1 he got like 19 touches. I think week 2 he got like 16. Penny's going to get some work, but I still expect Chris Carson to get a majority of the running back snaps for the Seahawks. He's most likely going to get all the goal line work. He's been involved a lot more in the passing game this year, which is something we haven't seen in the past. Like even with Rashad Penny active, Chris Carson's still been getting work in the passing game. So I really like Chris Carson as a captain play. I just like him overall. He's probably one of my favorite plays on this Showdown slate. I like the matchup against this Rams front. The Rams got torched by the Bucs last week. Ronald Jones was running all over them. I expect Chris Carson to have a lot of success through the ground in this game. So I do like him a lot as a play on this Showdown slate. But the next guy we're going to look at, just a little bit cheaper, is Robert Woods. So he's $12K if you want to use him as a captain. He's $8K if you want to play him in the flex. Robert Woods last week finally had his first big game of the season. Pretty much all the Rams players had big games because that game was so high scoring between the Bucs and the Rams. I think like 95 total points scored. You had a big game from Cooper Kupp. Robert Woods put up a big game. Jared Goff had pretty big numbers. Even the tight ends got targets. Brandon Cooks had a pretty decent game. So a lot of the Rams players had decent outings in their last game. But Woods really went off for 13 catches, 164 yards. I believe he had like almost 40 DraftKings points or close to that. I think it was like 33 or 34 DK points. He got 15 targets in that game. It's always hard to predict which Rams receiver is going to go off. I've pretty much said that every time the Rams are on the slate. It's always hard to predict which guy's going to have the best game, but I do feel a little more confident with Robert Woods over Brandon Cooks, just choosing between those two. I think Cooper Kupp is the clear number one, and then choosing between the number 2 guy, I think it's close between Woods and Cooks. I do slightly prefer Woods, though. He's, I think, $200 more than Cooks. I would just rather find the $200 and play Robert Woods. I feel like Robert Woods is a safer for more targets. You could argue that Cooks maybe has more upside. He has more big play potential, but I feel like if you're going to project a guy for 9, 10, 11 targets, it's definitely Robert Woods over Brandon Cooks. So I do like going to Robert Woods a lot on this showdown slate. I could definitely see if you want to play Jared Goff as a captain. Usually if I play a quarterback as a captain, I want to stack him with at least 2 pass catchers. So then I would probably play Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods in those lineups. So I do like Woods here a lot. I expect the Rams, like I said, to have a lot of success in this matchup. I expect the Seahawks secondary is probably going to struggle defending these guys. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, these guys are going to be able to get open. I do really like Robert Woods a lot. But now we're going to look at a couple cheap guys since we have talked about a lot of the expensive players that I like. I do want to give you some value. So the first value that I like is DK Metcalf. He's 9,600 as a captain play. He's 6,400 as a flex play. He's yet to have a breakout game this season, but I think it's definitely coming. This is a guy that had a ton of upside in college, and we all remember how he did at the Combine. The guy did incredibly well at the Combine. I know his 40 time was like incredible. He's just a fast, strong receiver. He's a pretty tough matchup for any corner that's going to be on him, so I do really like DK Metcalf. I think we're going to see him have a breakout game where he goes for 5, 6 catches, 100-plus yards, and a touchdown, maybe even multiple touchdowns. The big game's coming for DK Metcalf. He's clearly the number 2 receiver behind Tyler Lockett. Lockett's the number 1 guy for Russell Wilson, but DK Metcalf is the clear number 2. The Seahawks, really, their number 3 receiver, it's up in the air who their number 3 receiver is. Honestly, it's probably Will Dissly right now, or just seeing how much Dissly's been targeted lately, but guys like David Moore, Jerron Brown, you're just not going to get much production from those guys. A lot of the receiver production from the Seahawks is going to come from Lockett, Metcalf, and Dissly. So I really like Metcalf here. He's seen 23 targets through 4 games. he gives you some salary relief on a showdown slate where I think we're going to want to try and pay up for some of those studs at the top. There's a lot of viable options to spend up for. You got both quarterbacks, you got all the Rams receivers, even Lockett, Chris Carson. There's just so many good options at the top. So we're going to need to find some value. I think DK Metcalf does provide that. And if you want to play him as a captain, I think that makes some sense because of how cheap he is. He does have upside, which anytime you're playing a cheap captain, you want to find a cheap captain that at least has upside. And I think Metcalf does have 20-point potential here. So I do like him as a cheap captain. Playing him at captain is going to open up so much for the rest of your lineup. You'll be able to spend up for probably guys like Cooper Kupp. You might be able to play both quarterbacks if you go with Metcalf as a captain play. So I do like him as a cheap captain. I do like him overall just as a cheap value play that you can target on this showdown slate. But the last guy we're going to look at for value is Gerald Everett, the tight end for the Rams. He's $3,200. Didn't include his captain price because probably won't be using him as a captain, but I think he does stand out as one of the viable cheap options on this slate rather than playing the kickers or the defenses. We've seen this year kickers and defenses have been in the winning lineup before, like on Monday night in the game between the Bengals and the Steelers. The Steelers defense did put up like 18 or 19 DraftKings points, and they were in the winning lineup. But I just don't see that being the case here in this game. I don't think we're going to see defenses or kickers be in the winning lineup. I just don't think that's going to happen. I expect this game to be high scoring, so I don't think the defenses are going to have much success. Maybe the kickers come through and outscore maybe a guy like Everett, but I still would rather go with Everett. He at least has like touchdown potential. He did play a decent amount of snaps last week against Tampa Bay. I believe he got 8 targets. I think Tyler Higbee got like 6 targets. But Everett played 56 of the 98 offensive snaps last week. Higbee played 44 of 98, so Gerald Everett did play 12 more snaps than Tyler Higbee. Higbee's a little bit cheaper than Everett. I think Higbee's he's $1,200 cheaper, so he's $2K. So he's someone you could go to. I'm definitely fine dropping down to Higbee if you need to save the salary. But I do feel a bit safer going to Everett. I feel like his targets are a little bit more secure. I feel like his playing time's a little bit more secure as well. I just feel like he's going to be on the field more than Tyler Higbee is. So I do prefer going to him, but I think both Rams tight ends make sense as viable cheap plays rather than playing the kickers or the defenses. So that's kind of where I'm looking to for value, guys. That's pretty much it for some of my favorite plays for this showdown slate. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. I do really appreciate you watching. Make sure before you get out of here to drop a like on this video and let me know down in the comments who are some of your favorite plays for this showdown slate. Be sure to let me know who your top captain is, who's the guy that you're trying to play at captain, whether it's someone at the top or if you think there's a good viable cheap captain. Feel free to comment that down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that way you never miss out on any of my new videos and you'll get notified every time I upload. I would really appreciate it. But good luck tonight, guys, on this showdown slate. Really appreciate you watching the video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.